All right, hello again, everyone. This is Tim Lake at the studio in Albany. And again, we're talking to political candidates here in the Capital Region. And today we have the Republican candidate for the mayor of the city of Albany, Alicia Purdy. Ms. Purdy, thank you so much for being with us here.
Glad to be here.
Oh, we appreciate it. There are lots of issues to discuss as the mayor's race is coming up in the city of Albany. First of all, let's get an idea to know you first. Now, you're a Republican running in a strong Democratic city. The mayor is well known in Albany. You know, it's half the battle winning an election is to become well known. Unfortunately, in our current political climate, that's what it's become. So give us an idea how you're making yourself known to the voters in Albany. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your profession, and why you're running for mayor of the city of Albany.
Okay, so my name is Alicia Purdy. I am in the Republican Party. I'm running on two lines on the ballot, the Republican line and the conservative line. And yes, you're right, it is a Democrat stronghold, but I'm not afraid of a challenge. I never have been. I'm an independent journalist. That's what I do for a living. I run my own business as a journalist and have built my entire career as an independent journalist. So I do everything from TV to radio to print journalism to management of companies. And so anyway, so, you know, running in the Democrat stronghold has been interesting because you're right, name recognition, no matter who you are, and that is something that has been probably the biggest challenge is the who are you question. And what I've done to get my name out of there is true grassroots, getting to know people. Now, my name is not unknown in Albany. It never was unknown. It just depends on where I'm known. And so reaching a wider net of people who are different than I am, people who travel in different circles, that's been a really interesting part of the journey, probably my favorite part and my most challenging part. But it is the name recognition, because what money can buy you is money can buy you television commercials and massive amounts of mailers that cost, you know, $25,000 to sweep the city, that sort of thing. And so what happens when you're not an independent millionaire and you have your work cut out for you is you have your work cut out for you. And are you up to that challenge and the work? And I was. And so I've spent the last 11 months working the city of Albany, showing up everywhere, getting to know people and making sure that people understand the difference, that I'm not just I'm an entrenched political candidate, but I really am an everyday person who has the knowledge and skill and ability to lead the city of Albany. But people do want to know, how are you different? What will you do differently? What do you bring to the table that's something we should pay attention to?
All right, so then let's talk about some of those issues.
Yes.
And the biggest issue facing the city of Albany right now, as we're talking to you in mid-October, of course, is the gun violence issue. The city and the mayor have been, over the past several months, moving to do so or shutting down businesses for attracting violence. We have three of them that have been prominent in the news. The Delaware grocery store had an issue several months ago. Cafe Hollywood just recently was shut down and then negotiated a reopening. And now the Lounge, the most recent shooting in the city of Albany. Are the mayor and the police chief handling things correctly in your view and to rectify this problem?
So my plan for Albany is called Operation Transform. So that's an acronym. And people seem to look at it as a laundry list of items, when really it's a cohesive organism of thought, which is when we look at safety and policing in the city of Albany, I think the biggest fail in the last 8 years, I'm a resident in the city of Albany. My family is from Albany for generations, and violence and peace ebb and flow. They always will in such a large existence of humanity as we have here in the city of Albany. So some of that's to be expected. It's really how you anticipate and manage it. What I've seen and what Operation Transform brings to the table is, instead of these single shot approaches, you know, shut down this business, a lot of after the fact approaches have been a problem. And Operation Transform, if we talk about the S is safety and policing, for example, we don't just say, how do we address safety and policing single shot? We shut down a business. What we do is we say, okay, so this is an entire cohesive thought here. If we're looking at safety and policing, we have to look at the impact on the other letters of the acronym. How does it impact our taxes? How does it impact our revenue? How does it impact our neighborhoods, our opportunities? Because what I've seen in terms of leadership in the last 2 terms, and what caused me to step up actually was what happened in 2020, the way that 2020 was managed in the city of Albany and all of our challenges. I realized these single shots, scrambling after the fact, trying to address something, it isn't working. We've really got to take a more coordinated, cohesive approach. So there's a balance to what we have. You can't just shut down a small business. That has a lot of impacts across the entire city. And that's what it's been, another fail. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't have its time and place, but I don't agree that this has been the great approach. The approaches are way too narrow, and they're not taking other things into account that are impacted after the fact. And we're seeing that it's actually not working.
Now, the mayor has said it's one of the measures that she can legally do that has an immediate result. And what do you think of that concept?
Here's what's interesting about the lounge. If you paid attention to the little tidbits that came out from the mayor's office and the police chief, you saw that there were conflicting accounts. One of the accounts said that they had been tracking this issue for over a year at that location. And then another account had come out saying, well, this was news to us, that there was a biker gang, it was a biker bar and all these things. And so anyone paying attention can see that seizing a power of emergency or declaring a state of emergency in the city of Albany is a dangerous, dangerous precedent to set for a leader. Again, some of these powers have their time and place, but it's allowed the mayor's office or city hall, the leadership, to take a broad sweep of power that I believe is an encroachment. And I've been really dismayed, especially as a journalist. I really fundamentally believe in, especially journalism, the media being a watchdog of the government and having a check and balance. And there is something wrong here when a governmental leader can declare a state of emergency and make a broad sweeping decision like a monarch, instead of a leader who's beholden to not only the people, but to their common council. And it's been a real problem, and it's caused further damage and trauma to the city of Albany.
We are speaking with Alicia Purdy, who is the Republican candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. Let me ask you one more issue about the police departments. The chief recently has been trying to increase the ranks among the police departments and try to get more people through the police academy. You suggest that you try a little different approach by fully staffing, I guess you want to fully staff the Albany Police Department. How would you accomplish that goal?
Well, certainly, I would bring their budget back to at least what it was 5 years ago. I've been tracking the budget for the past decade, the past 2 terms roughly, and it has ebbed and flowed, but it is missing significant chunks of money to what we used to have when things were better in the city of Albany and our violence was a little more well in hand. So I would increase budget right off the top. And yes, fully staffing 80 officers is a lot, but it presents a secondary challenge. People graduating from police academy and getting the heck out of Albany. And there are a lot of other challenges there, including lack of support from City Hall. We know these are all things that are broadly known. These are not campaign speech issues. These are things that are known in Albany. We have a terrible reputation for retaining good recruits. And some of that has to trickles down from the reputation we have of a leadership not having an officer's back. So there's some other work to be done there. But let me just give you a little picture of what Albany would look like for policing with Alicia Purdy for mayor. And that would be not only a fully staffed, we're missing at least 80 officers. We are actually hemorrhaging them. They are retiring. They're moving to other municipalities. They're out. And we can't attract new hires. So under my plan for Operation Transform, what I'd like to see is I would like us to see a broader type of policing. So for example, before I get pigeonholed into something, for example, we need a strong canine unit. That would be one. We borrow canines all the time from the county. We actually could use some here in the city of Albany for various needs. We could do better with undercover policing. We could do better with neighborhood. I can't tell you how many people, number one issue that comes up in Albany regarding police is people want a beat cop. They do. They want somebody who knows them, who knows their kids, walk home with a kid from school. They want somebody that'll sit on the stoop and chat with them. They do. And that's its own form of intelligence. You get to know people, build trust with the community, and let them see a different style of human being in the people that work with safety and policing. So right up, when I say fully staffed, I would like to see a more comprehensive police force, not the people driving by in their cars and watching people. We have that now because we're in a desperate scramble and we're so low with manpower. But when you have a built up police force, people who have ongoing training and education, these are things that the police themselves also want. And That's where it would begin with me is not only fully staffing it, but make sure we have these niche areas of policing covered so that we don't have to constantly scramble and resort to weaponry and conflict and confrontation. Could be greatly reduced if we could do some proactive things as well to address the more comprehensive needs we have in Albany that aren't just violent needs.
Do you think the city's going in the right direction with this proposition to allow the voters to decide on more authority for the Civilian Police Review Board?
I think that having civilians vote has its time and place. I do. You're talking about local law J, which
Yes.
it would give significant increase of power to the Community Police Review Board, including allowing them to subpoena officers' private personnel records, their private information, and to make that public as needed. And I've actually stood in opposition to that in the past. I think local law J is too much of an encroachment. I completely agree that there is work to be done, and we do need to have increased accountability and ways in which we can address conflict between the community and the police. And most officers I've talked to are actually on board with something like that as well. However, no, I think local law J is something, the concern is this: we have a Democratic stronghold in our common council as well. That is another problem, because once you have a 2/3 majority, local law J is passed by your elected official, whether or not you agree with it. And so putting it to the ballot would be a matter of education, but we're here now and it is on the ballot. And so what we have to do now is decide whether or not it's passed. How do we address it going forward? But I have said publicly, it is not something I would sign off on as it is written in its current form. I don't think it presents the most accurate solution to the problem.
All right, let's cover a few of the other important issues going on around the city of Albany right now as we're talking to the Republican candidate for mayor in the city of Albany on the upcoming election. So the city, like every other city around the country, has received millions of dollars from the federal government for COVID-19 relief. And the first thing the mayor did was announce that she was going to give rewards to city employees, the general services division of the city. But I take it you would like to see a more conservative approach to the way these COVID relief funds are spent. What would that be?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that our civil servants in the city of Albany, our essential workers, are worth, in my opinion, when you say conservative, I'm kind of laughing. I actually think they should have been given more. And I do think that having a greater support system in the city of Albany that are well cared for, they're not so overworked, I think that it's to the benefit of us all. And I do believe that them getting paid right when they were, I believe from the beginning that it was, the timeline was suspect since it was so close to an election, and many people see that as well. But I also think if it weren't an election scramble, we could have really stepped back and said, what can we do that sets Albany up for success through our civil servants by making sure that we can sustain a fiscal future with what we've just given them. So there's that. In terms of the COVID relief money itself, being fiscally conservative, which I am, doesn't mean I'm an Ebenezer Scrooge. It means I'm extremely careful and cautious that we have a sustainable fiscal future. We will not see a windfall like this again anytime soon in a generation. I mean, we've never seen a windfall like this, so it may never come around again, once in a lifetime. And what I'd like to do is, instead of mass spending it, and there are some deadlines, but instead of mass spending it or throwing it at things we've already done, or even coming up with new things that we're not sure are sustainable, I would like to take a big step back and do more than just listen. I would like to actually, I have said this before, take some time to examine and uncover what's working in Albany and what is not. I don't want to just throw it at a program where there's been low deliverables, or where there's been maybe some corruption, or there's been too many hands in the pie, so to speak, where we've really got to create an efficiency in how our government works. And I think that that's going to help when we have a fiscally conservative mayor. It has nothing to do with spending or not spending. The money will get spent. It won't get spent on Republican things. It'll get spent on the people of Albany. But I think we have to do an examination first of what the priorities are, and make sure that they have clear deliverables to the everyday person in Albany.
All right, Alicia Purdy, you have charged that blight has overtaken the city of Albany during the Sheehan administration. What would you do to handle, abandoned buildings, businesses, trash in the street, and what have you, if you were elected the mayor?
Oh, I can't lay that squarely at the feet of Mayor Sheehan. That I cannot. There have been buildings in Albany that have been blighted for 25 years. And so that certainly predates any damage that she could do. So I want to be even handed and say that that's not exclusively her problem, but addressing it poorly. Certainly in the last 8 years, we've seen one of the things I've learned, we were talking earlier about emergency powers. One of the things that I've seen the current administration do is if they need to do something, it will get done. And taking down a lot of the blighted buildings can be done. And in fact, if codes and fees and fines and permits are in the way, there are certainly ways to get them out of the way. Now, I would like to see a clearer path, a clearer legal path to getting things accomplished in the city of Albany. But there are blighted buildings. It just makes common sense to tear down. Over in Victory Gardens and First and Quail, there's a building loaded with asbestos. They dragged it out and threw it on the ground where people have planted a garden, a food garden. Those are real problems. And what the city hall has done so far is to say things like, well, we couldn't get a hold of the landowner, or we've billed them, or we've called them. Some of these issues are known longstanding issues, but at the end of the day, if a building is harmful to the city of Albany, there's legal infrastructure in place to make sure that that harm is not continued. We know that blighted buildings attract crime. We know that they provide cover for people that are operating an illegal nightclub or selling drugs or squatting. There are people who are not supposed to be living in there, and police and fire now can't go in. What this does is it not only damages the beautiful reputation of the city of Albany, but there are families that live near these buildings, there are people eating, there are people that are affected by them. And when you put people first, getting rid of the buildings, it's actually not as much of a problem. There's a path to get rid of them. Why it hasn't been done up to this point, I cannot speculate. All I can tell you is that my focus is on people and livability in the city of Albany and getting rid of those blighted buildings, or getting them into the hands of people that will fix them up and own them, getting them back on the tax base, is absolutely a priority in the plan. T in Operation Transform is for taxes, and that will address blighted buildings.
Ms. Purdy, as of mid-October, the city of Albany had not taken a move to opt out of marijuana legislation, legalization in New York State. There's no indication that it will be, as many other communities around the state have done so. And doing so assures their opportunity to stay in the future. I guess it's a little complicated. Do you think the city should be opting out or staying in with the legalization of marijuana?
This is a difficult question. The city of Albany has turned down a lot of great opportunities, like Amazon, for example, would be one of them. I think Costco might have been another one. This has a lot of serious implications to opt in or opt out of having marijuana dispensaries in the city of Albany. I will say I've done research on both sides of the equation. I've talked to a lot of people pro and a lot of people against, and maybe that's one of those things we put on to the ballot ultimately, because what I see, I do see the damage, especially to young people. Can it be controlled? This is not like having a liquor store. It isn't. And people have tried to compare it to that, but it would bring in drastic amounts of revenue. I think we can be more creative, and I have some excellent creative ideas under Operation Transform for increasing revenue that I don't think we need to drag in revenue from marijuana dispensaries. However, as of right this moment, what I would say is I'm open-minded to someone making the case, but I don't have a decision either way. It's extremely complex, and I think that it warrants a much larger discussion from the people it would directly affect.
All right, here's an issue that certainly would impact you if you were elected mayor of Albany, because it's impacted almost every mayor for decades and decades. Is you charge that Albany is one of the most taxed cities here in the capital region, in the state for that matter.
Yes.
The problem is there is so much state-owned land within the city that it removes a large chunk of land that could be otherwise taxed for businesses and what have you. How do you overcome that? I mean, how can you make the charge that Albany is the most taxed city in the region when it's already got an issue with not being able to tax state land that's exempt?
One of the things that we know that the mayor is often broadcasting in the budget for at least the last 8 years is the tin cup money. About $12 million a year, hat in hand, we go to the state and we beg them for some money to help offset some of the costs of having state-owned land in the city of Albany. And you're right, it's a significant amount. And that's just state-owned land. That's not even tax-exempt land. We have a lot of other tax-exempt land, and not just churches, but schools and hospitals, et cetera. So dealing with just the state-owned land, Here's an interesting little facet. I'll just give you a little forecast of what life will look like regarding this tin cup money. If you had the properly assessed value of that state land, we would have an assessed value of anywhere between 65 to $100 million, not 15 or $12 million, that's due to the city of Albany. One of the things I think has been, and I'm just going to speculate, and I don't mind people understanding this a little bit. One of the things I think has been a problem is that because we've had mayors in the same party as governors for the largest lion's share of the last 100 years in the city of Albany, there's been a permissiveness through the city of Albany to allow this. And I think what we need to do is we need to pursue the state for our just share of bearing the burden. And there are a couple ways to do that. One of them is simply to develop a great relationship with the governor or get a different governor. Another way to pursue that path would be a lawsuit against the state of New York. But I don't believe that it's something that could be accomplished not only with the current mayor, but with most other mayors we've had in the past. The fact is, we could greatly reduce our taxes and offset the cost of bearing land here that's state-owned in the city of Albany if the state would pony up the fair assessed value of the land that is in our city that's owned by the state.
All right, Ms. Purdy, we'll have to leave it at that. We thank you for your time again.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. And I want to remind our viewers that your opponents will also be interviewed on this program, and you'll be able to watch them both on NEWS10 and NEWS10.com. Again, Alicia Purdy, the Republican candidate for mayor of the city of Albany, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.